Good, how are you?
Yeah.
You're having some issues? Yeah. Which one?
No, I can show you. I found that.
The third one? Do you have it there or no? Do you need me to bring it up?
It's gonna die.
You want me to bring it up? Oh, I can look it up.
It's gonna die anyway, so it's not like big. I understand. I think I wasn't here.
Yeah, listen, if you put the 8,500,
So, you know me, I usually ask.
Okay, so is $8,500
Yeah.
into a simple interest account for 3 years?
at a rate of 3.65%.
What is it?
3.65%.
All right, how much will be there at the end? Okay. Let's see if it's 11 o'clock. Hello, everyone. Let's get down to business today. We're going to continue with our shampoo formula from last class, where we're trying to figure out how much money would be left in an account if we put a certain amount in for a certain amount of time at a certain interest rate. So I've been asked about the homework that I sent out, number 3. So I'm going to go through that problem just to make sure everyone's using their calculators properly. I said, what would happen if you put $8,500 into an account for 3 years at an interest rate of 3.65%, right? So what I'm giving you, the amount that you start with is P. The 3 years is your T in the formula. And then this is your interest rate. But what do we have to do? There's something very important about that interest rate before you can use the formula. Turn to a decimal. So if we convert this, we have to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And it becomes the decimal 0.0365 instead of 3.65%. Be careful, don't move that decimal the other way, right, to the right, because then it's going to be way off. All right? Okay, so let's plug into the formula. The amount that we should have should be the principal amount, the starting amount, 8,500, and then E raised to the R, which is 0.0365 times 3. And what you should do first is this. Figure out what this number is. Or you could use your calculator to do all of this at one time. Kind of depends on how comfortable you are with your calculator. But you need to do that before you do anything with the 8,500. So I'm going to just do all of this and then see if you get the same thing. I do E raised to the 0.0365 times 3. I get 1.11572. So 1.11572. You did the whole thing in the calculator. That's fine. That's okay. Were you able to get that or no?
Do you have to put the E like in the calculator? Is there like an input for that?
Yeah, yeah.
Do that.
Yep.
I know you have to put the second, the shift whatever, but
So for your calculator,
it's It's
Where is it? It's above that. It's right above this. See it in blue there?
Oh, yeah,
So hit the second key, then hit that key,
that's how you get
and then you put point
0.0365 and
point
then
times 3. So point 0
365.
times 3.
So just
Yep, 3. Enter.
okay.
Okay, and then you'll take that number, that answer, multiply that number times that number. So go ahead and take that answer and multiply times 8,500. And you should get somewhere around 9,483. I'm getting 0.62. And that's how much money I have in the account after 3 years at that interest rate.
I'm suing the bank.
What's that? Not enough, huh? 3% is not enough. Do you all know what the stock market averages annually? If you invest money in the stock market on average, what the return is? No? I think historically it's somewhere between 10 and 12%. So, but with the stock market, there's always risk that you lose your money also. So it's not guaranteed. All right, does that help? Yes? Okay. So let's do another problem, all right? And let's do a problem where instead of you having $8,500 and you put that in the bank and you want to see how much money you'll have after 3 years, let's say you make a pretty large purchase, all right, for $8,500, but you put it on a credit card. And let's see how much you would owe if you didn't make any payments for 3 years. Okay, now you'll have penalties and stuff like that, so we're not going to include that. So imagine you did a credit card purchase. I want to use 8,500 again so we can compare our answers to give us an idea of how much it'll be, different, what a difference it'll be. So a credit card purchase of $8,500. We're going to do this at a rate. Let's do a pretty conservative rate, nothing crazy. Let's do something like 16.99%, which I think is relatively low. And then let's say for 3 years. So again, this is not realistic in the sense that when you do a credit card purchase, they expect that you make payments every month, right? And if you don't make payments, they start penalizing you. So we're going to act like we didn't pay for 3 years and there were no penalties. How much money would we owe after those 3 years are up? So we're going to use the same exact formula, right? The only difference is that our rate is now going to be, move the decimal 2 places to the left, our rate's going to be 0.1699, and that's what we're going to plug in up here. So I'm going to redo this. Does anyone have any questions while I'm doing this? 8,500 to the 0.1699. Take that number and multiply that times 3. And then you'll multiply 8,500 times that. So I'm going to get on my calculator now. Now this number here is 1.66479. That's what I'm getting. And then I take that and multiply that times 8,500. Oof, oh my goodness. Wow. 14,150.70. That's money. That's $14,000, right? So big difference, right? You put the money into a bank, you let them hold on to it, they pay you an interest rate on it. You made some money on it, right? It was like $9,400. So you made a little bit less than $1,000 to have them hold that money for a year. Now, if they loan that money to somebody else at 16.99%, then potentially that's a huge difference, right? It's almost double. It's almost double the amount. Yeah? Okay, questions? No? Did you get that on your, did you try that on your calculator, e to that? No?
Not yet.
Okay, did you have a question though?
Yeah, so how do you No, quando move decimal to left or to right.
Anytime we convert a percentage to a decimal, we always go to the left. Yes. And then if we want to go from a decimal to a percentage, we go to the right. So you just have to kind of remember that. One way you might be able to remember it that hopefully makes sense to you is if you think about 50%. 50% is like half, right? Half? Well, if you take the decimal point and move this over 1, 2, you get 0.5. And maybe 0.5 to you in your mind makes sense that that's half, right? Right, that 0.5 is 1/2. So 50% is 0.5. Okay, do we need to do more of these? You think you get it? You understand? Everyone good? Clear? Did you like me talking about like financial stuff or something? Something that I wanted to talk about that would be, I think, worth it to you to see. Yes, like real world math. Okay, have any of y'all ever purchased a vehicle? Everybody here is like at a different point in their life, right? So, anybody have purchased a vehicle? Yes, only a few, a couple. At some point, you might purchase a home, right? So what I want to look at here is something called an amortization schedule, which sounds terrible. What it is when you decide to take a loan from a bank, right? They're going to loan you money. You have to pay that money back at a certain interest rate, right? And you make monthly payments, and at the end of that term, you pay your loan off. So like if you buy a car, most car loans are like 4 years to 5 years, but even nowadays they go out to like 6 years. And the longer the term, the longer the loan is for, the cheaper your payment's going to be. The shorter the term, the more it's going to be, right? So what I want to look at is we're going to go and like buy an imaginary car, and we're going to look at a couple of different scenarios, and I want you to see the difference between the different scenarios and how much you wind up paying at the end. Okay? Because if you go to buy a car or a house, these things matter. All right. It's going to take a second. So when you go to buy a car, anyone who's bought one or maybe you've gone with someone, what do they always ask you? When you go to buy a car, they sit down. I mean, they ask you what kind of car you want, but
Credit score?
so they want to run your credit. They want to know if you can make payments and that you can get a loan from a bank, because a bank won't loan you money if your credit score is too bad. The thing that, in my experience, the thing they've always asked me when I go to try and buy a vehicle or gone with someone to buy a vehicle is they ask, how much do you want to pay per month? Okay? That's what they've always asked me. How much would you like to pay a month? How much can you afford to pay a month? Would you be okay? Yeah. Would you be okay with a $200 car payment? Would you be okay with a $300 car payment, right? That's the way the salespeople usually approach it. They try and figure out what you are willing to do per month. All right, so I'm just telling you that while this loads, because I want us to see that when you go into a dealership and you just tell them how much you want to pay per month, that gives them a huge window of what they can do for you. And it can be good for you or bad for you, as we're going to see. So I'm going to go to something called bankrate.com, all right? Bankrate is a really good site for a lot of financial stuff. So let's see here. What do we want to do? Where's the auto? I don't see auto. I thought it was a good site. Here we go. Up here. Loans. Okay, what kind of loan do we want to take? Auto loan, right? Auto loan calculator. All right, here we go. All right, we're gonna go buy a car. Can you all see that? How much do we want to spend on a vehicle?
I think I spent like $7,000 on my car.
7,000? Okay, so I mean, this again is gonna depend on you, right? It's hard to find a vehicle nowadays, right, for cheap, right? The car prices are crazy. I recently traded in my truck. I had it for 5 years. I traded it in, and I actually got $1,000 more than I bought it for.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is nuts. It was worth more 5 years after I bought it than it was the day I bought it, which is crazy, but that's inflation. All right, so look, it has 15,000 here. Do y'all want to just go with 15,000? I think it'd be hard to find a used car for 15, but let's just do that. Okay. So we're going to do 15,000, and then how many months? Let's say that we're going to go 4 years, 48 months, and then the interest rate on the car. I'm going to just go to auto loan rates right now. Let's see if we can find auto loan rates. Like what's out there.
Sir,
Yes.
if you pay like twice a month instead of just once, does that like kind of lower the...
Oh yeah. You can lower it by making double payments. Now I'm not going to show you that, but let's.
I think I ended up doing that by accident, I think, for my car. Like,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I didn't even know they're taking like twice.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm going to go with about 5% because I'm seeing about 5%, 4 point something. I'm going to go with 5% here. So let's do 5%. And let's just buy a used car. If you buy a new car, usually the rates are a little lower. All right, so look at what it says. Our monthly payment is $345 a month. All right, that's how much we're going to pay, $345 a month. So I think I want to write this down. So we're going to do $15,000 car. We're going to do it for 4 years, and we're going to pay $345 a month. So there's an easy way to figure out how much you're going to pay, right? There's an easy way because this is your payment, and you paid it for 4 years, right? How many months are in a year? 12. So 48. Someone on their calculator real quick, do 48 times this. 345 times 48 and tell me what you get.
7.18.
345 times 48?
16,560.
16,560. That's what you pay. That's what you wind up paying at the end. Okay? So you borrowed from the bank $15,000, and over 4 years, you paid them $345 every month. So at the end, you paid the bank $16,560, which means they made how much money off of you? You borrowed 15, right, and you paid back 16,500. So take that and subtract that. That's $1,560 in what's called interest. I think that's up here, right? They have it here for us. Do you see that number? That number is basically the number of how much you paid to borrow that money, right? So you paid the bank back the $15,000 plus that. So that's how much the bank made off of you. Understand? Okay. Now let's go in there and let's say, you know what? I don't want a $345 car payment. That's too much for me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend my loan out further. I want a longer loan. I want to pay it back not over 4 years, but over, let's say, what? 6? I don't know if this will even let me do 6 years. So we'll go 5 years. Look at that. It brought our payment down, right? It brought our payment down. Instead of 345, what is it? 283. So 283 is our payment, and this was for 5 years, right? They brought it down. And now, how much do we pay at the end? Who cares how much we pay at the end? How much in interest do we pay? $1,984. So what happened? Your payments were lower, but you paid for longer, and you wind up paying the bank more for their money. So you, instead of paying them $1,560 to borrow that money, you paid them almost $2,000 to borrow that money. Does that make sense to you? So you can always extend your loan timelines out, right? And it helps you monthly not have to put out so much money, but at the end you wind up paying back more than you would have, right? I mean, what if you went and bought this car with cash, right? You pay $15,000, that's it, right? You're not paying anyone to borrow money. All right, you're good. All right, let me see. I want to see if I can go out, because a lot of times people will go in and they'll do, instead of 5 years, they'll try and do 6 years. I don't know if I can do this. Let me try. Oh. Geez, come on. I want to go more months. I think I'm going to have to go to a different calculator. Oh, here we go. Let's go back to 15,000. We're not going to put any money down. Not traded, 72 months. Good credit score. Okay, it's adjusting. 72 months. What is our... That doesn't seem right. Something seems right. Oh, wrong here. It's doing some other things that I don't want to put in there. Here we go, 72 months, no down payment. We're going to take sales tax out, title, calculate. Okay, so this one, our payment, so if we go to 6 years instead, right? Go to 6 years instead, then our payment's going to be $241, right? $241. And at the end, the total interest we pay is $2,393. So we wind up paying more for that money because we extend it now. Our payment's lower every month. So that's what I'm saying. If you go into a car dealership and you say, hey, I'm here to buy a car, and they say, well, how much do you want to pay a month? Then that gives them a lot of flexibility in terms of they can push your loan out. They can make your loan longer to give you the payment you want, but then that hurts you because you wind up paying more money in the end. And then also with cars, you have the dilemma that if you do a 6-year loan, how much is your car worth at the end of 6 years, right? So what's the value of your car? Cars are never investments. Like, you're never supposed to buy a car to make money off of it later. It's been unusual, the way things have been. Like I said, I sold my truck for more than I bought it for. That's very unusual. It's never really that way. Usually you just try and hopefully break even at the end.
No, they say
If you can afford, well, there's always a give and a take, because then that's cash you don't have anymore, right? But anytime you can pay cash, then you don't have to pay any interest, right? You're not paying anybody to borrow money, right? You're using your money. So during COVID, what happened in San Antonio and in Texas is that a bunch of people from California decided, hey, you know what? In different parts of the country decided, hey, you know what? Let's go live in Texas, right? Because what are some things in Texas? We don't have, well, things are so expensive in California. So they said, Texas, you know, if you're military, you can have disability, so you don't have to pay property tax. There's all these like incentives to want to live in Texas. So people that were living in Texas or living in California lived in this little tiny 1,000 square foot little house, right? Sold it for $1 million because that's how much it was worth in California. And now they have $1 million. Even if they owed on it, they still have, let's say, $500,000 in cash. They come over here and they're like, holy shit, I can get a lot for $500,000. And so they just came over with their cash. And what happened was people who really wanted to buy a house, who wanted to borrow money from the bank and would make an offer on a house, The seller would be like, do I want to sell the house to this person who's going to have a loan and I don't know if they're going to qualify, or do I just take this person who has cash? And you always take the cash buyer because there's nothing that's cash, right? So cash is always king, like in the sense that if you can pay cash, but then the drawback again is you don't have that cash anymore. The advantage to borrowing money is that you don't have to get rid of that money. You can have that money in your bank still, right? It's just a question of how much of a hit do you want to take at the end, right? How much of a hit do you want to actually feel at the end of it all, right? $2,000, is that worth it to you to have a low payment for 6 years? Or would you prefer to have a high payment and not pay back as much? There's not a huge difference between these, right? It's not like dramatic, like break that up over a few years. It's, it's not like thousands of dollars a month. It's just a few, maybe $100 a month or something like that, right? Understand? Okay, so this is to illustrate just the difference between interest rates in terms of loans, all right? I want to show you one more thing because I think the most people in the United States at some point want to buy a home, right? Because when you rent, what you're doing then is you are truly just flushing your money away, right? There's advantage to renting. Renting, you can just pick up and move, right? If something breaks in the house, it's not your responsibility, right? Taxes, you don't have to pay. You just pay rent and that's it. So there's this kind of non-committal part of renting that can be good. But most of the time you want to try and own, because if you own a home, then every dollar you put into it, at some point, you're actually going to see some of that back. And so when you get to the point where you pay your house off, whatever it's worth is cash. I mean, that's your money, right? Instead of giving it to someone like a renting. So what I'd like to show you real quick is if you buy a house, does anyone know what the standard length of a loan is for a house? 30 years. That's the standard loan on a house. You go buy a house, the standard loan is, we're going to set you up to pay back this loan over a 30-year period. And at the end of 30 years, you will own the house. It'll be yours. Until you pay it off, it's yours and the bank's. Both of you own it. And if you stop paying, the bank kicks you out and they take the house. All right, that's the way it works. All right, so I want to show you, because this is usually like a complete eye-opener, jaw-dropper when people see this. All right, we're going to go put in a house here and we're going to look at how much you wind up paying to borrow the money when you buy a house over a 30-year loan. All right, you ready? Let's decide on is this worth it to y'all? I mean, we can do other stuff. I mean, but yeah, this okay? All right. So I'm going to go back to bank rate because, let's see. How much do we want to spend on a house? $350,000. $350,000? I think that's a good price for nowadays. It's hard to find stuff below that. No, I don't want to do that. I want a calculator, damn it. Mortgages. Do y'all see it anywhere here? Mortgage calculator.
Calculate your mortgage payment under the 15.
Here we go, this one. All right, there we go. Hey, look, they almost had it, $350,000. We're gonna do $350,000. Another thing about buying a house. Do you all know what the biggest hurdle is to buying a house? I mean, at some point, hopefully, maybe you'll want to buy a house. Do you know what the biggest hurdle is in getting a house? It's closing costs, but the standard loan, right? The standard loan that you take, you have to come to the table with 20% of the cost of the house in cash. So if I wanted to buy a $350,000 house right now, I would need to come to the table with 20% of that in cash to close, which means I would need, and it's probably going to show us here in a second, I would need to come to the table with $70,000 cash to buy a $350,000 home, all right? And so what that does is it gives the bank some assurance that if the market goes up or down, 20% of the house is already paid for. So if the market drops and the value of your home drops because all your neighbors start putting I don't know, crap in their front yards, and you know what I'm saying? Like people start doing shitty things to their house or stop taking care of their homes, the values drop. At least the bank has 20% in what's called equity in the house. So that's the biggest hurdle, right, to buying a house. Like my daughter, my older daughter, she's my stepdaughter, she's 20 years old, right? She can afford a monthly payment on a house. She can afford it. She works, she can afford the monthly payment on a house. It's actually cheaper than it would be for her to rent an apartment. The problem is she can't come to the table with the cash yet, right? She doesn't have the cash to put down to make the purchase on the house. So she's got to rent until she has enough cash to put down on the house. That all makes sense to you? That's the biggest hurdle for most first-time home buyers, is having that cash. Now, there are other loans that you can take that don't require any cash, but the interest rates are like, so they charge you a lot of money to not come to the table with 20%. So the ultimate goal is to try and have that 20%. All right, we're gonna look at this now. This is gonna blow your mind, I think. Right now, interest rates are pretty high. Okay, I think they're about 5.27%. So look at this. If we buy a $350,000 home, right, then we are going to have a monthly payment of roughly $2,000, all right? About $2,000 for that house. And this is the amount of interest you are going to pay. So you remember this? To borrow $15,000 for 4 years, it was that much money we paid in interest. And then for 5 years, we paid a little more. For 6 years, we paid more. Do y'all see that number? You're not seeing things. You borrowed $350,000. You paid for 30 years, you paid 5.27%. At the end of it all, this is how much you wound up paying for that house. And this is how much the bank made off of you over those 30 years, which is basically the cost of the house, right? Right? That's crazy, right? That's crazy. There's more bad news. Okay, I have more bad news for you. This thing called an amortization schedule. So do you see this monthly payment? Right? Every month I pay about $2,000 to the bank. And what that should do is chip away at how much I owe them, right? Well, the way the bank does it is they say, okay, thank you for your $2,000. Part of it is our profit, and the other part is going to go towards how much you owe on the house. And in the beginning of a loan, that ratio is extremely skewed. Where's the table? Do y'all see a click for amortization table? Where's amortization table? There we go. Nope, that didn't do it. Oh, here it is, schedule. There, perfect. This is what I wanted.